recap for Week 14. It's December 12th, 2022, and the Arizona Cardinals were at home taking on the New England Patriots. The final score was a disappointing 27-13, the Cardinals taking the loss to the New England Patriots, of course. Let's get right into the stats. The first thing you should know is Kyler Murray was injured on the third play of the game and would not return. It appears it's an ACL injury, and he may miss the rest of the season. More news to come on that. But first, Colt McCoy would take over, completing 27 passes on 40 attempts for 246 yards. No touchdowns in this game and 1 interception. I think it's notable to say that he took 6 sacks for 45 yards. Absolutely terrible offensive line. James Conner, 15 carries, 1 touchdown, and 85 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, 7 receptions, 79 yards. Like I said, no touchdowns in this game. Robbie Anderson, 4 receptions for 50 yards. Marquise Brown, 4 receptions for 34 yards. Taking a look at the other side of the ball for the New England Patriots on offense, Mac Jones completed 24 on 35 attempts, 235 yards, also 0 passing touchdowns and 1 interception. The New England Patriots had a running game consisting of many different running backs, Pierre Strong Jr., Kevin Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, who would not have much of an impact on this game going out with the injury early as well. The defense for the Patriots would be the real story here, forcing a couple turnovers on the game. Anyway, I'm not going to get too much into the playing breakdown. As you can tell, it was a disappointing day for the Cardinals. So I'm just going to pass it over to Michael Benjamin for his reaction on this Monday night performance.
We were praying for a bye week for a couple of weeks now, just with the way that this entire season has gone. And finally, we get ourselves back on the playing field. And of course, on national television. It hasn't boded well for us so far this season. But you're hoping to see some life and some just glimmers of hope from this team to fight to the end, right? And especially with what's happened the past 3 years and this entire time with Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray. And the balloon deflated immediately when Kyler went down on that third play of the game. And it was just, you look around, you try and look at your teammates, you try and just look at the fan next to you and you say, where do you go from here? I mean, we've already been dealing with so many injuries this year. It was tough to start for both teams, really slow, but the Cardinals had a 13-7 lead, looking to score some more points and couldn't punch it in towards the end of the half, gave up a field goal, and then it was just kind of all downhill from there. One of the big things that came out to me was that 6-yard gain on second down on the 7-yard line. The Patriots are inside of their 20 with 4 minutes left in the first. Why are we challenging that play? It's so early in the game. You got to think, you got to hold on to those kind of things, especially with the way this coaching staff has mismanaged timeouts this entire season. To call for a review that early in the game on such an inconsequential play that's so deep in the other side of the field. I mean, it's what has happened this entire season, guys, right? Like, there's nothing that we can really say about that. And then, of course, Kingsbury has not won a challenge since 2019. I mean, some of these other stats, you're not going to be surprised. The Patriots knocked in a red zone touchdown, their first one since week 9. You just start looking at some of these stats that have come about the past couple of years, and it all compounds when your team is struggling, right? Steve Keim has 1 winning record over the past 7 years. We have 1 win during our time on Hard Knocks, which started halfway through this season. We are 6-13 in December in the Cliff Kingsbury era, 2-7 at home. Cliff is 1-11 at home for the last 2 years. You start to look at what some of the problems are in regards to leadership, and you start to think, well, what is it? Women lie, men lie, but numbers don't, right? And it's getting really hard to start trying to point the finger in which direction and whatnot. But we can really go into this game as a whole. But one of the things I was telling you guys, which for the people at home was actually the first game that we actually sat together for and watched in its entirety, all three of us. But when your main guy goes out that early in a game, even semi-decent teams, I feel, find themselves able to rally and fight to the end. And there was just so many blunders within this game, from offensive penalties, turnovers, miscommunication, and whatnot, which has happened this entire season. But for them to not be on any kind of semblance of a page has just been, what we've seen this entire season. And you can't blame Colt McCoy. I'm sure he didn't get that many reps with the first team offense this week, but he has played pretty recently with that first team. So it's just a tough one to see. And we already said a couple of weeks ago, this season's over, but I wonder what is going to happen for the rest of the way forward. I know we were crossing our fingers. I know we don't want guys to get injured, but since we didn't have Trace McSorley, it would have been kind of a crazy thing to see who would have played quarterback. But it's going to be tough to go and finish this one out, especially since it sounds like Kyler Murray is out for the rest of the year, possibly with the ACL injury. And I don't know about you guys, but I didn't sign up to see Colt McCoy finish the end of this year. And it's no fault to his own. It's no fault to anybody else, but it's just how this entire season has gone. And it's a tough pill to swallow at the end of the day. And that's all I got.
Yeah, to your point, no third string quarterback today. Of course, you can't ever plan on your starting quarterback going out and needing a third string quarterback, but it also doesn't hurt to be prepared. And knowing that Kyler Murray is the type of player that's going to scramble and try and extend plays and leave himself susceptible to being injured more so than any other type of player. And on top of that, Colt McCoy being an older player, not saying, I mean, that may or may not make him more susceptible to injury as well, but to not have a third string quarterback ready to go, I'm with you, man. I would have been curious to see who they rolled out. Would have been Prater. Who else maybe might have played quarterback in high school? I was kind of trying to look it up there on the spot, like you said, the first time we watched a game together. In any case, there's a lot we talked about. I know driving in, I was a little bit late, came in about halfway through the first after Kyler Murray had already gone out, and I had heard on the radio, what was going on, and just instantly kind of like just really bummed. Obviously it's a non-contact injury. Sounds like it's an ACL. Sounds like he's going to be out for the season. And I don't blame Kyler Murray for that, but obviously the criticism is going to come and the comparisons are going to be made where you'll get the Call of Duty jokes where, of course, now he has all the time in the world to get all the way up to 10th prestige and max out all of his gun camos or whatever he's up to on his live streams. Or maybe he'll start doing his live streams again. I don't know. Instantly, I think, Mike, I was showing you my game notes. I wrote Kyler is the Greg Oden of the NFL. A big talent, and nothing against him. Like, maybe guys are just injury prone, and he's just, I'm right now, my gut reaction is Kyler's a bust, and I just don't see him coming back from this. Between his bad attitude, his lack of growth, his immaturity, all the criticisms coming into the season, and now going out with this injury, it's just, like I said, injuries are not his fault. I'm not going to hold that against him, but honestly, it's not unfair. Like, we roast Greg Oden, and the injuries weren't Greg Oden's fault either, but we're still going to roast him, and he's just going to own that. So he might get comeback player of the year. Alex Smith, he came back from a lot worse, and Alex Smith got comeback player of the year with a really messed up leg. I thought I would make this a lot more of an X-rated rant as far as swearing, but I think I got it all out. And honestly, I think none of us can really be surprised. Tallman, I want to pass this over to you, but 1 of 11 in the last 12 games at home for the Arizona Cardinals is just absolutely terrible. And the one last major point I want to make that I kept telling you guys tonight is the Kyler Murray injury secures Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim's job going forward. They will without a doubt be back, because otherwise they'll be able to use the excuse of, oh, Kyler Murray got injured, it's not our fault. So they'll be able to ride on that and keep their jobs for another year. So look forward to next year with those three guys. But also, another point is an ACL injury and that recovery time period is not quick. we're going to need someone to start next season for us not just in training camp, but going forward. But Tallman, I want you to speak on that going forward, but I also want you to, kind of talk about what you saw tonight in the Cardinals performance.
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy is we've lost 14 of our last 19 games. Like, let that sink in. That's just horrible. And going off what you said, I don't really even want to talk too much more about what I saw tonight. I mean, let's talk about some of the issues of being the most penalized team offensively in the NFL. Let's talk about horrible ball security again by people running the ball or, catching the ball after the catch, or by, our quarterback, who, regardless of who it is, not having time to be able to throw the ball, and then turns around, he throws an interception, a costly interception. So the biggest thing I want to touch on, I think Mike Ben hit on most of the points from the game. I don't really have much more to say on what happened tonight, except, it was another one of those games where, hey, we're in it at halftime and we can't score a point in the second half. Really, what caught me from this one is, the injury to Kyler Murray is huge right now. And who cares about the rest of the season? Like you mentioned before, we already sat here 2 weeks ago and said the season's over. 3 weeks ago, even. I think I even said the season's over. Who cares about that? Yeah, great. We have another 4 games to sit here and watch Colt McCoy start at quarterback for the Cardinals. Who really cares at this point? This season's done. It's over. I'm looking at the big picture right now. And you brought up a good point about what's going to happen with the coaching staff, with the GM. And you're absolutely right. They're going to sit there and be like, even if this team scratches off 2 or 3 wins, I mean, think about the opponents that we're going to play. We're going to play the terrible Denver Broncos, the terrible Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who just lost 35-7 to the 49ers. We play the Atlanta Falcons, and then we're going to play the 49ers, who the last game of the season, they're going to have nothing to play for. So we might go 2-2 to the end of these games if we're lucky, right, with Colt McCoy. But then you're going to sit there and the same excuse is going to be had. Oh, well, we finished off the season on a high note. He didn't have his star quarterback, his $230 million man. So let's give him another shot, right? What I'm thinking about is, if the season ended right now, we have the 6th pick in the draft, 6th overall pick. If we won a couple more games, we still might have a top 10, top 12 pick. So what are we going to do with that? Who's going to start a quarterback? Like you said, Chris, I mean, if he doesn't rehab quick enough, he's not going to be in training camp. He's not going to be ready to go to start the season. If it's as bad as everyone's saying, who's gonna be that guy? Are we going to roll with Colt McCoy? Are they going to pick somebody up in free agency? Are we going to draft somebody? Who's that guy going to be? Because right now it's looking like it's not going to be Kyler Murray. So there's more questions to be had than the rest of the season. Our next season is in question right now with that injury to Kyler Murray. And that was the biggest takeaway that I had is, what are we going to do? I mean, I could sit here all day and say, we need a new coach, we need a new GM, but I don't give a shit about that right now. Who's our quarterback going to be starting week 1 in 2023? That's who I care about. So that's the biggest question here. How quick can this kid rehab? Can he turn around? And we're talking about a non-contact injury, which is terrible when you're sitting talking about Kyler Murray is supposed to be the best quarterback in the league that avoids contact, avoids injury, doesn't take unnecessary hits. Looking at the replay, he goes down on a play that, it didn't really look like he really did much, but you can't rule out those non-contact injuries. But there's really no excuse for it, where you can't say it's artificial turf. We have arguably one of the best playing fields in the entire NFL. So it's just disappointing to see him go down in that fashion. Not saying I wanted to see him, get totally smashed and taken out and get hurt in that way, but it's just rough to sit there and watch that, where he's always been that guy where he avoids injury, does that, and then look what happens here on this scenario. But it's sad. I feel really bad for the kid. I mean, like you said, with the Call of Duty thing, hopefully he gets the 10th prestige pretty quick in Call of Duty. Hopefully he has fun doing that. But I feel bad for him. I know, watching him cry going out on that cart. The kid's got some heart. He didn't want to go out in that fashion. He wanted to play. And too bad we couldn't see what could have happened this week. Yeah, what's going to happen next year? Can't wait to see how this all unfolds. Do we have a new coach? Do we have a new GM? Who's going to be our week one starter at quarterback? It's going to be interesting. We have a lot of questions, and just like in Cardinal fashion, bring on the drama. Let's go. Ridiculous.
Absolutely right, Tom. And a whole lot of questions right now and going into next season. And that's the sad part is we're already looking forward to next season. The Cardinals season is over. We've said it for the past couple weeks, but now it's for sure. The nail is in the coffin. Whether it's Hollywood Brown dropping wide open passes, although diving, very catchable, or Zaven Collins not making the play when he needs to. Michael Benjamin and I were saying in person, that's the difference between a great player and a superstar player. The superstar players will make that play, and that will be a turnover. Same with Hollywood Brown. The superstars will haul in that catch. These are the tiny things. And if anyone's watched Hard Knocks, you will see that this is an unserious, undisciplined team. And that starts from the top down. I'm saying Bidwell, Keim, Cliff, Kyler, all those guys, those are the people responsible for these failures. And Kyler's going to be injured. We're going to have to overcome that. It'll be interesting to see. They fall tonight 27-13 to the New England Patriots for week 14. They are pretty much done for the season. Next week in week 15, we'll be in Denver taking on the Broncos. Of course, we'll keep coming at you with these recaps for the rest of the season. Make sure you follow us at AZ_VSP on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Valley Sports Plug right here on YouTube and Facebook, of course. For Michael Benjamin and VSP Tallman, I am Chris Patrick, and we'll see you next week.